The standard of living is going down today, but it's going down and the middle class is hurting because of the monetary policy. When you destroy a currency, the middle class gets wiped out. It has to do with a fiscal policy, monetary policy, and foreign policy of way too much spending.
Congressman Paul, this comes from Jay Majumdar from Roswell, Georgia, and he wants to know if you agree with Senator McCain's statement that the United States might need to have U.S. troops in Iraq for as long as even 100 years.
I don't even think they should have gone. So keeping them for 100 years, where's the money going to come from? You know, the country's in bankruptcy, and when I listen to this argument, I mean, I find it rather silly because they're arguing technicalities of a policy they both agree with. They agreed going in, agreed for staying how many years, and these are technicalities. We should be debating foreign policy, whether we should have interventionism or non-interventionism, whether we should be defending this country or whether we should be the policeman of the world, whether we should be, you know, running our empire or not, and how are we going to have guns and butter. You know, the 70s were horrible because we paid for the guns and butters of the 60s. Now we're doing the same thing, and nobody even seems to care. The dollar is crashing, and you're talking about these technicalities about who said what when. I mean, in 1952, we Republicans were elected to stop the war in Korea. 1968, we were elected to stop the war in Vietnam. And tragically, we didn't stop it very fast. 30,000 more men died. So when I talk about these long-term stays, I think, how many men are you willing to let die for this? For something that has nothing to do with our national security. There were no Al-Qaeda there, had nothing to do with 9/11, and there was no threat to our national security. They never committed aggression. It's unconstitutional. It's an undeclared war. And we have these silly arguments going on about who said what when. I think it's time to debate foreign policy and why we don't follow the Constitution and only go to war with a declaration of war.
Governor Huckabee, the idea of a 100-year involvement of the U.S., the idea of a 100-year involvement by Congressman Paul, what makes you capable of being leader both on the economy and the military?
The Constitution is very clear that the President's commander-in-chief of the military, but the President's not the commander-in-chief of the economy or of the people. And when we get asked questions like, how are you going to manage the economy? It's a reflection of conventional wisdom, but of a lot of lack of understanding of how the economy works. The President's not supposed to manage and run the economy. The people are supposed to do this. The government's supposed to give them sound money, low taxes, less regulations. The people are supposed to run it. But here we're assuming that the President's supposed to run the economy. We're not supposed to manage it. We're not supposed to manage the people. What role do you think the federal government
should have in, I mean, does the federal government, in your opinion, have a role in stimulating the economy?
Yes, by lower taxes and less regulations. They could do a whole lot by having sound money where we don't print the money out of thin air. That causes the business cycle. That causes your bubbles. We're always dealing with the symptoms and the disease and never saying, how did this come about? You know, it comes about because we have a Federal Reserve that creates money and credit out of thin air. There's a lot of malinvestment. That's the most important thing to understand about the inflation of the monetary system, is the malinvestment. Then later on, people suffer, and you wipe out a middle class. But it's the evil of it all is the vehicle for financing wars that we shouldn't be in and a welfare state that we shouldn't be doing. So, yes, we have a role to play, but it's a negative role. We want the people to be free. We don't want to manage the people and tell them how to live. And we need a commander-in-chief. But the most important thing on it as a commander-in-chief is not moving troops around as much as it is having a wise foreign policy that doesn't get us involved in so many things, and we get trapped and we linger. Year after year, we've been doing this for so long.
Yep.
And I like President Bush's argument that we have a humble foreign policy when he ran in 2000 and that we not be the policeman of the world. I supported Ronald Reagan in 1976, and there were only 4 members of Congress that did, also in 1980. Ronald Reagan came and campaigned for me in 1978. I'm not sure exactly what he would do right now, but I do know that he was very sympathetic to the gold standard, and he told me personally that no great nation that went off the gold standard ever remained great. And he was very, very serious about that. So he had a sound understanding about monetary policy. And for that reason, I would say look to Ronald Reagan's ideas on money, because he, too, was concerned about runaway inflation and what it does to a country when you ruin the currency. And that's what's happening today. The dollar is going down, and our country is going to be on the ropes if we don't reverse that trend.